The man had clearly only defeated a single silver slime. Yet the loot that burst out was all S-rank artifacts. All because the system made an error, rewarding him by unlocking a hidden attribute. His luck skyrocketed to 9, and that one change was enough to rewrite his tragic fate from the previous life. That's right, he was a reincarnator. In his past life, even after becoming an old man with white hair, he remained a mere bronze-rank adventurer, and he stayed stuck on the first floor of the dungeon, where all low-rank adventurers gathered. Humanity's war against monsters had entered its final stage. Dungeon creatures had already flooded into human society, wreaking havoc everywhere. Countless adventurers panicked and fled. A kind young adventurer patted him and said, "Old man, run. This isn't the time to hunt slimes." But Yakido Takahashi rejected the warning without hesitation, quietly walking toward the slime ahead. People around him scoffed. Forget him. He's just a useless old failure. Another adventurer bumped into him while running, sending him crashing to the ground. He refused to accept this fate. For decades, since the adventurer system appeared, everyone could level up by defeating monsters, just like in a game. Their stats would rise accordingly, and sometimes they even obtained magic or skills. But why was he the only exception? Even after reaching level 98, none of his stats had changed at all, and yet he worked harder than anyone. He hunted slimes every single day just to gain EXP. Now his only hope was to reach level 99 and pray for a miracle. Time was running out. Even if his sword had broken, so what? Even if he died, he would still reach level 99 today. Come on, he muttered, clenching his fists. Let my own fists witness my lifelong wish. He always believed he was a late bloomer, and he held on to that belief. The heavens wouldn't play such a cruel joke on him. Then the system chimed, "Congratulations, Yakido Takahashi has reached level." Seeing the system notification, Yakido Takahashi was overwhelmed with excitement. It's here. Finally. Give me the reward for my lifetime of suffering. He thought eagerly. System message, "Congratulations, adventurer. Strength +1. But as soon as he saw the light and casual message, Yakido froze. This couldn't be real. Was the system joking? After spending his entire life struggling just to reach max level, all he received was a measly +1 strength. Why? Heavens, why are you messing with me? Is this really the end? High-level monsters were already closing in, surrounding him from all sides. Despair washed over him. He no longer had the strength to resist. Since childhood, everyone despised him. No one wanted to team up with a useless man like him. Even his beloved family had died indirectly because of his incompetence. And even his sister's happiness had been destroyed, all because of him. If this is my life, then let it end here. A monster stomped down, crushing him completely. System message, player has died. Anomaly detected in player Yakido Takahashi's system state. Fatal error encountered. Initiating repair. Rewinding life. Hidden parameter unlocked. Compensation issued. Special stat points +99. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself returned to his younger body. System message, congratulations. You are now a true adventurer. Confusion filled Yakido's face. Who was he? Where is he? What had he just been doing? After calming down and organizing his thoughts, he finally understood the situation. He had been reincarnated, back to the day he first became an adventurer. But what is going on? Something about the current status screen felt different from the one he remembered. A new downward arrow button in the corner caught his attention. When he scrolled down, he was shocked. An attribute had appeared. Luck, 9999 max. In his previous life, luck had always been a hidden stat. Could it be because I was so painfully unlucky for 70 straight years that the heavens finally compensated me? Either way, he decided to test it by hunting slimes in the dungeon. The scene shifted. Yakido arrived at the familiar grassland on floor 1 of the Tokyo dungeon. Seeing the sticky slimes scattered across the grass, Yakido Takahashi felt an unexpected sense of familiarity. In his previous life, he had hunted them almost every single day. Thinking back, he almost felt nostalgic. Just then, a dark shadow flashed behind him. When he turned around, he was shocked to see a silver slime, a super rare monster he had only encountered once in his past life. Back then, he chased it for ages, only for it to escape. Defeating one granted an enormous amount of EXP at once. But it was famous for fleeing the moment it sensed danger, so he needed to approach silently. However, at the worst possible moment, an arrow struck the ground near his feet. A nearby archer had spotted the same prey, but with terrible aim. "Idiot, now you've ruined it," Yakido muttered. Startled, the silver slime scanned left and right, searching for an escape route, then unexpectedly charged straight toward him. Surprisingly lucky, rather than running, it chose him as its target. "Come on, little guy, you're my favorite." Yakido tightened his grip on his sword and thrust it into the silver slime's head. A crack formed in its core. With one more decisive strike, the silver core shattered completely. System message: level up, plus 4 levels. As expected of silver slime, the EXP gain was insane. Unfortunately, his sword snapped in the process, meaning he needed a new weapon soon. Just then, a golden light shone behind him. An S-rank rare weapon had dropped, clearly thanks to his maxed out luck. Silver Slime Greatsword. Trait: massive attack power. However, due to the nature of silver slimes, attacks have a 30% chance to miss. With his new weapon equipped, Yakido resumed the hunt. Soon, he encountered 4 more super rare silver slimes. Even better luck, none of them fled, and all charged straight at him. "If you want to deliver EXP to me yourselves, I won't refuse." Raising his new S-rank blade, Yakido dispatched each one in a single clean strike. Every strike landed as a critical hit. That was the power of Yakido Takahashi's maxed out luck. He obtained S-rank items: Silver Slime Armor ×1, Silver Slime Gauntlets ×1, Silver Slime Boots ×1. The 2 adventurers behind him were stunned. His luck was simply absurd. Yakido continued hunting slimes without stopping. He didn't encounter silver slimes every time, but he still met 10 of them in total. Each one dropped plenty of S-rank gear. Today was the happiest day of Yakido's entire life. The feeling was indescribably good. In this new life, he would carve out a completely different future. He would find the best doctor for his mother and ensure his beloved sister live happily. He swore he would protect them this time. Then he remembered, after being reborn, he still hadn't seen them. 70 years had passed since he died alone in his previous life. Yakido wanted to go home. He wanted to see his family with his own eyes. The longing hit him all at once, and his steps involuntarily sped up. Soon, he reached the home he once knew. After so many years, he had almost forgotten which room was his. But the moment he saw the number on the door, childhood memories flooded back. His once anxious heart suddenly tightened with nervousness. Behind this door were the people he had missed for decades. Just as Yakido gathered his courage to open it, the door opened from the inside. A familiar figure appeared. "Oniai-chan, welcome home." Seeing his sister, Yakido couldn't hold back his emotions and pulled her tightly into his arms. "I'm back. This time, I won't let anyone take you away from me. Everything precious to me, I'll protect it myself." After calming down, Yakido told his sister everything that had happened today. Hearing it, she lit up. "So, Mom might actually be saved?" "Yes," Yakido said. "With the drops I get from monsters, money won't be a problem anymore." The next day, he sold some rare equipment and earned a large amount of money. With that, he bought a high-grade healing potion at an auction. Then he took his sister to the hospital. As they opened the door together, they called out, "Mom, we're here to see you." Their mother looked genuinely happy to see them. His sister opened the cake box and handed it to her excitedly. "Mom, this is a gift for you." Their mother smiled warmly, but still said with worry, "Himi's thoughtfulness I accept, but next time don't bring gifts. Save your money for things you need." Yakido Takahashi stepped forward. "Mom, you don't need to worry about money. We brought another important gift today." With that, he took out the high-grade healing potion. "I become an adventurer and earn a lot inside the dungeon," he explained. "Mom, please drink it," he urged softly. As she drank the potion, a gentle, healing glow spread throughout her body. "I feel so much lighter," Even breathing is easier, she said joyfully. After further examination, the doctors confirmed her condition had indeed improved. After some time of rehabilitation, she was finally allowed to return home to recover. Living together again felt like a dream to Yakido. Still, he knew this wasn't enough. The potion only eased the symptoms, it didn't cure the root. We need something stronger, a true legendary elixir. His sister suddenly recalled, right? I saw it on TV. The world's top adventurer once found a special item, a potion that can revive someone on the brink of death. They said it appears around the 50th floor and can't be bought or sold. This special item referred to a personal use-only artifact, obtainable only by defeating a powerful monster. Since it couldn't be bought, he would have to earn it himself. Brother, can you really reach the 50th floor? She asked anxiously. Yakido let out a bitter smile. Normally? Impossible. Most people die long before reaching it. She lowered her head, discouraged. Then what should we do? He gently reassured her. That's only what happens normally. The power I was granted isn't just luck. It's also the knowledge I spent a lifetime learning. Yakido Takahashi knew of one exception. The floor 20 boss, the ancient gargoyle. Defeating it had a small chance of dropping the rare elixir, though the probability was extremely low. In his previous life, only a handful of adventurers had ever obtained it. But with my maxed out luck, even the lowest drop rate is nothing to me. Today marked the beginning of his dungeon conquest. Yet he only wore 2 S-rank items. Silver Slime Greatsword. High attack power, but a 30% chance to miss due to the creature's instinct to flee that Silver Slime tier. A 1/3 chance to have incoming damage. He didn't equip heavy armor simply because his base stats were too low to meet their requirements. His target today was the 5th floor of the Tokyo dungeon, the Broken Forest, where defeating monsters could yield the miracle fruit. After accepting the lunchbox from his sister, he stepped out. She called after him, "Brother, you will definitely get stronger." A transition later, he arrived at the forest of the 5th floor. This area was dominated by plant-type monsters, with a maze-like environment that easily disoriented explorers. Fortunately, being a low-level floor, it had been fully mapped out. He easily obtained a detailed map and followed its instructions. Soon, he reached the first objective area, the Treant Nest. Treants were mimic-type monsters disguised as trees, waiting to ambush prey, nearly indistinguishable from real trees. But their mimicry wasn't flawless. Their leaves lacked veins, and their roots grew in unnatural directions. The next moment, a tree struck by a stone suddenly moved. A pair of crimson eyes snapped open, glaring viciously at him. Yakido immediately hefted his greatsword. He swung it downward. Treants weren't strong. As long as one avoided ambushes, they were easy to kill. System message: congratulations, adventurer. Miracle fruit times 1 acquired. He picked up the fruit and took a bite. It actually tasted pretty good. But more importantly, his strength increased by 1 point. The miracle fruit truly lived up to its rarity, granting a random +1 to any attribute. With this, Yakido Takahashi finally had a real way to grow stronger. Using his maxed out luck, he kept defeating treants and collected a large number of miracle fruits. During his break, he ate the lunchbox his sister prepared. After a full day of effort, all his attributes had reached their limits. I finally reached the average stats of a warrior at this level. Just as he decided to wrap up and head home, 2 dark figures flashed behind him. Hunting alone isn't a good habit. Let us teach you some newbie etiquette. A tall and a short man emerged, both looking shady, and neither wore an adventurer token. Yakido frowned. You two are wanderers? Wanderers were criminals who lurked inside dungeons to prey on others. He had heard of them, but never expected to meet them himself. Scared now, kid? The tall one sneered. Hand over your gear, and maybe we'll spare your life. Otherwise, you're dead meat, the short one added. Yakido replied coldly, sorry, but even a twig I won't hand to criminals. His words instantly enraged the two. Fine, you want to die? Then don't blame us. You spoiled brat relying on equipment. Think you can fight 2 of us at once? The tall man charged forward with his sword. But instead of retreating, Yakido dashed straight toward him. At the moment they were about to collide, Yakido leapt up and shouted, "Skill! Hosojiki!" The tall man burst out laughing. "Huh, an amateur. Hosojiki only has a 30% hit rate. You'll never land that. Watch my guaranteed hit skill, Bee Sting Strike. Max luck versus a guaranteed hit skill. Who do you think wins?" To their shock, the man's guaranteed hit attack didn't even touch Yakido's clothes, let alone harm him. While the tall man was still doubting what had just happened, Yakido's skill, with only a 30% hit rate, triggered perfectly, blasting the tall man straight into a tree behind him. The terrifying impact knocked him out instantly. The chubby thug stared in disbelief. How is that possible? A 30% hit rate landed in one strike? That luck is insane. With one enemy down effortlessly, Yakido's tension melted away. He finally relaxed. Perfect. Every single skill had triggered successfully. The opponent's Bee Sting Strike was a skill learned at level 25, meaning that guy was definitely much higher level than him. And Bee Sting Strike was a guaranteed hit skill, unavoidable, though its power dropped by 30%. But the silver slime tier embedded in Yakido's clothes had a 1/3 chance to have incoming damage, causing the attack to fall short of harming him at all. Seeing his partner go down in one blow, the chubby thug immediately wanted to flee. Yakido pointed his sword at him. "If you surrender yourself to the Adventurer Guild now, I might forgive you." Being looked down on enraged the chubby thug. "I'm a mage. At this distance, I have the advantage over a warrior. Got it?" Yakido casually sheathed his greatsword. "True. At this distance, you could hit me with magic before I reach you." Thinking Yakido had realized his disadvantage, the thug smirked. "Good. Be smart and surrender, or else." But Yakido reached into his system backpack, pulling out a magic staff. "Surrender? No way." Seeing the staff, the thug burst out laughing. "Do you even know what that is?" Yakido ignored him and swung the staff. It was the chaotic mishmash staff, an S-rank weapon he'd looted from a Tran earlier. The thug snickered to himself. The kid really was a clueless amateur. The staff might be rare, but in reality, it was trash. Its spellcasting relied entirely on luck, with terrible stability. Around 40% failure, 30% chance for basic spells, 20% for buffs, 9% for mid-tier spells, and the last 1% for high-tier magic. At that moment, Yakido had already activated the chaotic mishmash staff, and the magic was being randomly selected. The chubby mage quickly channeled his own staff. "Fine then, don't blame me for being rude. I'm casting a mid-tier spell right now. Even if your insane luck triggers that 9% mid-tier spell, my magic gear boosts my power. My spell will still be stronger. Which means, as a mage, there's no way I lose. Your newbie luck ends here." With that, he cast Ultimate Fireball. A massive flame shot straight toward Yakido. But Yakido didn't care at all. His magic was ready too. Around the chaotic mishmash staff, energies of various elements swirled wildly, and the spell selected turned out to be Fire Tribute as well. In the next instant, a gigantic flame boulder formed above Yakido's head. "So this is my spell? Go, Flame Boulder." With a swing of his arm, the colossal burning boulder launched toward his opponent. The mid-tier fireball was instantly swallowed whole. The chubby mage was completely terrified. Impossible. He triggered the 1% high-tier magic. "I'm dead. Completely dead." He could only watch helplessly as the massive flame descended, unable to escape. This must be an illusion. No one is that lucky. A miserable scream tore through the forest. The entire woodland was engulfed in a violent explosion, fire and shock waves blasting outward. When the smoke cleared, only a scorched crater remained, and the horribly burned chubby mage lying at its center. The overload of spell casting even broke the chaotic mishmash staff. But Yakido didn't care at all. He tossed it aside like trash. "Sorry, but I'm a super lucky guy." After defeating the two wanderers using his maxed out luck, he grabbed some vines and tied them up securely. Then he dragged them toward the dungeon exit. Since this dungeon worked like a classic RPG, Unconscious players automatically follow the team. Yakido barely had to exert any effort. After Yakido returned to the surface, he immediately called Hat Uncle, and the two criminals were taken away. They would likely never see daylight again. The scene shifted as he arrived at the Adventurers Guild lobby. The receptionist had already received the report. Congratulations. Due to your outstanding performance, you've been promoted to Silver Rank Adventurer. She presented the Silver Rank badge. Yakido was genuinely surprised. Becoming a Silver Rank Adventurer wasn't easy. Normally, it required more than 3 years of effort, along with completing many designated quests to contribute to the guild. Don't doubt it. This was decided by the higher-ups. The two wanderers you captured were actually members of the Red Bull Gang. The Red Bull Gang was a group of notorious thugs, so Yakido received a huge amount of contribution points. Seriously, you're impressive. You're still only bronze rank, yet you defeated 2 criminals with silver rank combat power. But Yakido simply felt that those 2 were weak. Maybe he was just lucky. He picked up the silver rank badge. You're too modest. Now that you're silver rank, you may explore higher dungeon floors. Indeed, adventurers were restricted by rank. Bronze could only reach floor 10. Silver could reach floor 30. Gold had no restrictions. Now Yakido could finally reach floor 20, the place where the item he needed was located. Hearing that, the receptionist warned, floor 20 isn't easy. I don't recommend going alone. Thanks for the warning, but I have a reason I must go. Don't worry, I won't throw my life away. With that, he turned and left. Everything had progressed much earlier than he expected, all thanks to those 2 wanderers. Just then, an elderly man with white hair suddenly called out to him. Are you the adventurer who defeated those 2 villains? He pointed his cane toward the wanted posters on the wall. 2 of the faces were exactly the criminals Yakido captured. After Yakido confirmed it, the old man grabbed his hand emotionally. Thank you so much. My son was killed by them. You've avenged him. No matter why you caught them, I'm truly grateful. In this way, the old man could finally visit his son's grave and tell him this good news. After saying that, he turned and left the Adventurers Guild. Yakido realized that in his previous life, no stranger had ever thanked him. He didn't expect it to feel this good. But he almost forgot. If events followed the previous timeline, the world would eventually face destruction. Although he wished he could save the world, one person alone could never do it. Stop overthinking. The most important thing now was curing his mother's illness completely. As for the world ending, he would think about that later. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room somewhere, a faint candlelight flickered across the cold weapon resting on a stone table. Damn it! How did things turn out like this? A man roared in frustration. He never expected Yamada and Hashimoto to be arrested. Now he had no way to deliver tribute to his superiors. It's all your fault. You ruined everything. Yakido Takahashi, you'd better wait with your neck washed. I won't let you escape, not even with an inch of resistance. Since Yakido managed to defeat 2 opponents at once, his strength clearly wasn't low. But there were many ways to take down a single person. Now that I've set my sights on you, consider yourself unlucky. To grow stronger, Yakido headed to floor 15 of the dungeon, Lonely Death Peak. The roads here were complex, surrounded by jagged rocks. Judging from the terrain, teamwork would be extremely difficult. Before coming, Yakido checked notes. This place was said to be so well hidden that it eventually became a haven for criminals. And that was precisely why he chose it. It was the ideal location for a solo adventurer like him. To challenge floor 20, he needed even more strength. Although leveling up couldn't raise his base stats, it would allow him to learn higher tier skills. He originally planned to grind experience by hunting silver slimes. But because he hunted too many earlier, they stopped appearing, so even maxed out luck wasn't perfect. In the end, he could only level up by defeating stronger monsters. As Yakido fought through the area, he gained a large amount of experience and even obtained several S-rank items. At some point, without Yakido noticing, a man appeared in a shadowed corner. He observed Yakido, holding a silver slime greatsword, wearing no other armor. No doubt about it. He's the Yakido Takahashi I'm looking for. Didn't expect you to walk right into my territory. You got guts, but going out to fight him now isn't my style. I need to wait until he drops his guard. Then I'll jump him and bang, bang, 2 punches and it's over. And so, the bald man tailed Yakido until nightfall, yet never found an opening to strike. No, I need a better plan. Yakido suddenly came up with a good idea. In fact, he didn't need to deal with that bastard personally. This was the bald man's territory, and he knew everything about the area. With just a bit of environmental manipulation, he could easily crush Yakido. Just like in nature, monsters also had their own ecosystems, and he only needed to exploit that. First, he reduced the number of predators in the area. Then he supplied abundant food. As long as insect-type monsters had enough food, they could reproduce rapidly in a short amount of time. With no natural enemies, their numbers would grow exponentially. And so, the bald man secretly carried out his plan for several days. It's time to harvest the fruits of victory. Unlucky adventurers, too bad. You'll all be caught in this monster swarm. Soon, he arrived at a cliff with a bag of insect lure powder. Below him stretched a dense sea of insect monsters. Looks like everything is going smoothly. Now, let's begin the final stage. The moment they smelled the lure powder, all the insects became violently frenzied. The next second, countless insects surged upward from the canyon. Ha ha ha, go devour that bastard completely. Meanwhile, Yakido was still hunting nearby. Suddenly, he heard a buzzing sound coming from the distance. It was getting louder and louder. When he looked up, he was stunned. An enormous black cloud appeared overhead, engulfing the entire sky in seconds. A closer look revealed it wasn't a cloud at all, but a massive swarm of insect monsters. There was absolutely no way he could handle this alone. He immediately sheathed his weapon and sprinted in another direction. To deal with such a massive swarm, he needed other adventurers. But where was the gathering point on this floor? He vaguely remembered information from his previous life. Supposedly, ever since the Triangle Mountain base was built, clearing Lonely Death Peak became easier, and that base was located inside the Red Earth Cavern. However, he had checked the map beforehand and saw no such location, but he didn't care. He had to head there anyway. Soon, Yakido reached the Red Earth Mountain area, but there wasn't even a trace of a cavern, let alone other adventurers. What was going on? Had he taken a wrong path? But now wasn't the time to think. He jumped down without hesitation. Underground, Yakido Takahashi noticed that the color of the stone wall differed from the surroundings. The cave entrance had to be inside. He shouted into it. "Is anyone there? I'm here to ask for help." Yet no matter how loudly he called, no response came. Seeing the incoming swarm closing in, he raised his greatsword and hacked furiously at the stone. Soon the rock shattered, but the scene inside stunned Yakido entirely. What was going on here? Dozens of adventurers were tied up on the ground, stripped of all gear. Feeling light entering the cave, the bound people all looked toward him. Seeing this, Yakido swung his blade toward them. A flash of sword-like cut through every rope in an instant. He didn't understand what happened, but he freed them immediately. Then he asked, "So what exactly happened here? Who can explain?" They replied, "Wanderers. We were ambushed while hunting. They didn't kill us, probably planned to sell us." Meaning this place was actually a criminal base of the Wanderers. It would only become a supply station in the future. According to the original timeline, the association would discover this place soon and rescue these adventurers. Only then would it be turned into a proper supply base. But Yakido had intervened early, deviating from his past life's memory. In that past life, he spent 70 whole years on the first floor, hunting nothing but slimes. The thought made him speechless. Things were different from what he expected, but he had no choice except to fight alongside these people. Yakido shouted, "Excuse me, everyone listen to me." He pointed toward the sky outside. "A massive swarm of death locusts is approaching. We must stand together." Outside the cave, countless death locusts filled the air. Each one was in a berserk state, ready to rush in at any moment. The crowd was stunned. Impossible. The locusts on this floor shouldn't be this many. Are we doomed? Yakido stepped forward and said, "As you can see, we don't have much time. If you want to survive, then work together with me. With everyone's strength combined, we can make it through." But someone in the crowd stepped forward and argued, "With just us? You really think that's possible? It'd be better to scatter and run. Maybe a few would live." And most importantly, all our gear was stolen by the Wanderers. In this state, we can't possibly defeat the Locust army outside. Yakido Takahashi answered confidently, "As for gear, don't worry about that," as he opened his system inventory. With a slide of his finger across the item bar, piles of high-grade equipment appeared out of thin air. "I have plenty of gear. Use whatever you want." Everyone stared wide-eyed. "Am I seeing things?" The blonde man examined them and realized every piece was dropped on this floor, and all were rare grade. "Just who is this guy? I've never seen him on the adventurer rankings." Soon, everyone had chosen equipment that suited them. "I can't believe it. I actually get to experience a day like this. These items are amazing." A female mage asked, "We can really use these freely? Or do we need to give something in return?" Yakido replied, "Use them however you want. I can even give all of them to you. But there's one condition: during the battle, listen to my commands. That's all." "Of course, no problem. You saved us and even gave us equipment. From now on, you're our leader. We'll act according to your orders. Tell us, how we deal with those bugs outside?" Yakido hadn't expected such cooperation. For someone who lived alone for so long, this sudden trust left him momentarily overwhelmed. In his previous life, he had seen too many selfish people, but now he felt trust, something he had never experienced. Next, I'll explain the battle plan. Our biggest disadvantage is the enemy's sheer numbers. But fortunately, we can use this narrow cave entrance to our advantage. Only a limited number of death locusts can enter at once. We'll kill them as they come and break through them one by one. The group heard this and had no objections. Yakido drew the great sword on his back and shouted, "Everyone, prepare for battle. Cave defense plan, begin. You filthy bugs, come in and die." And then it began. The clash between the adventurers and the locust horde finally erupted. According to the plan, every time a locust flew in through the cave entrance, they immediately took it down. With coordinated teamwork, warriors blocking at the front, archers and mages attacking from the rear, the locust numbers gradually started to decrease. But they had no idea that outside, massive swarms were flying toward the mountaintop. If someone were out there, they would see the insects wrapping around the entire rocky peak, with stones falling as the mountain trembled. It was because the locusts were digging. Inside the cave, the number of locusts was still high, but thanks to the adventurers' coordination, they could barely manage. Suddenly, the ceiling cracked open and debris rained down. Yakido Takahashi shouted immediately, "Don't panic. Hold formation. Fall back slowly." But the cracks widened rapidly. In the next moment, countless locusts burst through. The two adventurers closest to the opening turned and fled in terror. With the sudden influx, their previous plan collapsed entirely, and they were quickly surrounded. Damn it! How did it turn into this? The unstable pit could collapse at any moment, and with this number of locusts, it was beyond what a handful of people could handle. After finally being reborn, was Yakido really going to die here? At that moment, he noticed old bombs left behind in the mine. They had been placed there by wanderers for base expansion. A system prompt appeared. Obtained inferior explosives. Yakido thought it might be worth a try. He then shouted, "Everyone, pick up all the explosives scattered around." The group split into two teams. One smaller team gathering the explosives nearby, while the stronger combatants focused on holding off the locusts, and like that, they fought on for several hours. 1/3 of the cave had already been chewed away. Worse yet, behind them was a steep cliff. They had been pushed to the brink. Their stamina was nearly gone. If they didn't do something soon, they wouldn't last. Yakido glanced at the cliff behind him and finally made up his mind. "Everyone, hand over all the explosives you have now." Without hesitation, the adventurers tossed every explosive they carried toward him. At this moment, Yakido Takahashi already had a large amount of explosives stored in his backpack. He took them out and scattered them along the cliff's edge. Meanwhile, as the locusts continued gnawing away, the cave was on the verge of total collapse. He immediately ordered everyone to run, saying he would handle the rest. The others didn't hesitate and sprinted toward the exit. One man at the back shouted anxiously, "Are you crazy? Why aren't you running? Do you want to die with those bugs? And did you forget, warriors aren't supposed to use explosives?" Yakido gave him a firm look. "Trust me." He then stood at the cliff's edge, drawing all the death locusts toward him. In life, there are moments when you simply must take a risk, and this was one of them. Inferior explosives times 13. Use in bulk? As he pressed yes, he leapt toward the cliff. "Come on, bugs. Let me show you what I can do." Warning: player lacks explosive handling skills. Detonation success rate: 50%. Warning: explosives are low quality. Success rate adjusted to 25%. As a warrior, his detonation chance was indeed low, but he had maxed out luck. System prompt: use successful. The next moment, every explosive around him detonated, the blast engulfing the incoming locusts. The entire cliff collapsed, and the remaining locust horde lost balance and fell with him. He had no choice now but to gamble everything. He stepped onto a falling boulder, then used the airborne debris as footholds to jump upward repeatedly. He raised his greatsword, activated the skill Gasajiki, and sliced a massive stone clean in half, only to spot a remaining locust, persistent as ever. He would end it here. He lifted his greatsword, golden light gathering at its tip, and with the Hashingiki guaranteed hit skill, he not only landed a critical strike, but pierced the creature in a single blow. The final monster fell, and Yakido used the recoil to propel himself toward the cliff's edge. A faint relieved smile appeared on his face. He had made it. At that moment, Yakido Takahashi realized the distance to the upper ledge was still too far. With no other choice, he raised his greatsword and thrust it hard into the stone wall. But unexpectedly, the entire chunk of rock broke off. Seeing victory so close, yet slipping away, he felt unwilling. It was just a little more. Just then, a rope suddenly whipped toward him, looping around his arm. He grabbed this final lifeline tightly. While the adventurers shouted, "Everyone pull! Get him up!" Looking at these earnest adventurers, he suddenly realized having companions might not be so bad. Most of the locusts were crushed by falling debris. The rest were either slain by them or fled. Gazing down at the corpse-littered bottom of the ravine, Yakido smiled under the glow of the setting sun. He had won his gamble, and with 0 casualties, they annihilated the entire locust swarm. A miracle. At the same time, he gained many rewards. Slaying a massive number of death locusts granted him the title Insect Hunter, increasing his damage against insect-type monsters by 20% and raising his level by 3. And he obtained a new skill, Warrior's Instinct, having saved numerous adventurers and ended the locust disaster. He instantly became a celebrity among adventurers, drawing attention wherever he went. Many wanted to add him as a friend, and teams invited him to join their dungeon runs. But he politely declined. "Sorry, I'm in a hurry." He refused because loot in party hunts is distributed randomly, meaning he couldn't guarantee obtaining the rare elixir. And drops for monsters killed by others were low grade anyway. Solo hunting was far better. He hadn't been home for days. His mother and sister were surely worried. The scene shifted as Yakido returned home, greeted by a warm, lavish dinner prepared by his mother. The first bite hit him with deep nostalgia. He wished the 3 of them could live peacefully like this forever. His sister then asked, "Big brother, are you really going to challenge the 20th floor?" His mother added anxiously, "Don't push yourself. I heard that from the 20th floor onward, everything changes." His sister handed him her phone. Only about 15% of adventurers make it past the 20th floor. The difficulty is insane. Yakido reassured them calmly, saying it was fine. Hadn't they both seen the news already? He was strong now. His mother knew there was no stopping him, so she could only warn him to never push himself too far and to retreat immediately if he encountered danger. She added that her condition had improved a lot and that there was no need to rush so desperately. However, Yakido understood better than anyone that if he failed to obtain the potion as soon as possible, the tragedy from his previous life would repeat itself once more. He spoke firmly, telling his mother not to worry. He would return safely. His younger sister sighed and complained that her brother was far too stubborn, and once he made up his mind, not even 10 oxen could drag him back. Their mother smiled with nostalgia and said that this trait was exactly the same as their father's. The tragedy of his past life pierced Yukido's heart like a sharp needle. To completely cast off the shadows of the past and begin a new life, he knew that this time he had to obtain the potion no matter what. The scene shifted as Yakido arrived in a pitch-black underground palace, the 20th floor of the Tokyo dungeon, within a super-physical barrier. Pressed for time, he sprinted straight ahead. Suddenly, 2 humanoid automatons appeared before him. This was the defining feature of this floor. Every monster here was inorganic, soulless machinery built solely to kill. Facing them, Yakido did not slow down at all. In a flash of steel, 2 swift slashes were enough to instantly destroy them. At that moment, a gargoyle dove down from above, flying straight toward him at high speed. Yakido raised his greatsword and cleaved it in half with a single strike. Without breaking his pace, he continued forward. Soon, he reached the entrance to the boss chamber, but a massive shadow blocked his path. Upon closer inspection, it was a powerful stone guardian, which slowly rose to its feet upon detecting the intruder. It then swung its massive fist toward Yakido with crushing force. Yakido relied on his footwork to evade while rapidly closing the distance. At the moment he came within range, he lifted his great sword high and struck straight down at the core in the stone guardian's chest, shattering it instantly. With its power source destroyed, the stone guardian collapsed to the ground, completely inert. Yakido stepped up to the entrance of the boss chamber. He knew clearly that this battle would become a crucial turning point in his life. From today onward, he would personally carve out a brilliant future of his own. Meanwhile, back at the Wanderer's camp, the bald man stared in disbelief as his supposedly flawless plan collapsed, overwhelming rage and fear surging through him at the same time. Panic gripped his heart. If this continued, he would surely be killed by them. All of this was because of that bastard. No matter what, he had to kill him. Even if it meant sacrificing his own life, he would not hesitate. The scene returned to the 20th floor boss chamber of the dungeon. When Yakido pushed open the door and stepped inside, he found a vast room completely empty, devoid of any living presence, with only a massive magic circle carved into the floor at its center. However, at the very moment the door closed automatically, the magic circle flared to life, and a gigantic stone giant slowly emerged from within it. The 20th floor boss, an enchanted golem. Its exterior was incredibly hard, and its attack power was exceptionally high. Even so, that was all it had. Relying on his speed advantage, as long as he avoided direct hits, Yakido was confident he could handle it. With that thought, he raised his sword and charged straight at the boss. The golem swung a heavy punch, but Yakido dodged it with ease. Seizing the opening, he lifted his greatsword and struck down at the stone giant's leg, the powerful blow instantly carving visible cracks into it. This was Yakido's battle plan. With the golem's overall defense being too high, he could only weaken it by systematically damaging specific parts. If he kept this up, destroying the core was only a matter of time. However, the unexpected still occurred. Just as Yakido was fully focused on fighting the boss, a familiar figure quietly pushed open the door to the chamber. "Yakido Takahashi, I'm here." As the intruder stepped inside, the magic circle at the center lit up once again. Another enchanted golem was summoned into existence. Yakido stared in shock at the newly appeared boss before him. This made no sense. Under normal circumstances, a single chamber could never contain 2 bosses at once, unless there was an intruder. However, when Yakido turned to look toward the door, he found nothing out of the ordinary. The door remained tightly shut, showing no signs of being opened. That only deepened his confusion. Typically, during a boss fight, a double boss anomaly would occur only if another party or individual suddenly barged in. Yet even novices would not make such a basic mistake, let alone on the 20th floor of the dungeon. Just as Yakido was trying to figure it out, a dagger suddenly shot straight toward him. He instantly sensed the lethal danger from behind. Raising his greatsword, Yakido spun around and slashed, a sharp clang ringing out. The dagger was knocked away, spinning off into the distance. Yakido's expression darkened. This dagger meant that the double boss situation was no accident at all. Hidden in a corner, a man ground his teeth in fury. Damn it, this guy's reactions are way too fast. Indeed, the bald man was crouched behind a stone pillar, having planned to ambush Yakido while he was distracted. In his eyes, even if Yakido had narrowly avoided that attack, his own overwhelming advantage remained unchanged. The opponent was nothing more than a foolish solo adventurer. Before coming here, the bald man had thoroughly researched the dungeon. On the Adventurers Forum, it was clearly stated that the recommended party size for the 20th floor boss was 4 or more. And yet Yakido had dared to come alone, giving him the perfect opening. He had no fear of drawing the boss's attention. As a rogue with a level far higher than Yakido's, he possessed an absolute class advantage. By activating his stealth skill and erasing his presence, he could avoid detection entirely. The bald man quietly activated his skill, Feline Advance. In the next instant, his figure burst forward like a shadow, charging straight toward the red boss. While Yakido was locked in combat with the green boss, the bald man struck the red boss from behind in a sudden ambush. The bald man immediately activated his skill Shadow Shift, vanishing in an instant and slipping into the shadows in the corner. At the same time, the enraged red boss finally found an outlet for its fury. Somehow, it had already moved behind Yakido, directing all its wrath toward him. Hidden behind a stone pillar, the bald man sneered in satisfaction, thinking that he had even brought along his treasured invisibility cloak, just to be safe. The invisibility cloak, an S-rank rare piece of equipment, greatly reduced the chance of being detected. In his eyes, even if Yakido sensed something was wrong, there was no way he could pinpoint his location. Now it was 3 against 1. He was eager to see how Yakido planned to win. With that thought, the bald man pulled out a vial of poison and swiftly coated his dagger with it. Then he flung the dagger straight toward Yakido. In his mind, the prey was already taking its first steps toward hell. In the next moment, a sharp streak of sword light grazed past Yakido's cheek. A system notification followed, ding. Poison check failed. Seeing that his deadly toxin had no effect at all, the bald man was stunned. Could this guy be wearing poison-resistant gear? But he quickly sneered. This was only the beginning. He then scattered a large handful of caltrops toward Yakido. Next came several spike balls. Once these devices touched any surface, they would instantly spring open, releasing a swarm of sharp spikes. Not stopping there, the bald man rapidly strung iron wires throughout the room. Crackling electric currents danced along the wires. Finally, he revealed his trump card, a poison gas prepared specifically for Yakido. As the valve was opened, he hurled the gas canister toward the center of the chamber. With so many traps restricting his movement, Yakido's mobility would be severely limited, and he would inevitably be torn apart by the 2 bosses. All that remained was for the bald man to hide on the ceiling and enjoy the show. What he did not know, however, was that even while fighting the bosses, Yakido had already detected his presence. Yakido glanced toward the shadows and said disdainfully, "Is that all you've got?" The bald man stared in disbelief. How was this possible? He could actually see him. Yakido added calmly, "Don't stay silent. At least say something. What? Are you a stalker secretly in love with me?" As he spoke, he casually tossed a dagger in the man's direction. After confirming that Yakido could indeed see him, the bald man finally broke his silence and demanded, "How did you discover me?" A faint smile appeared on Yakido's face as he replied, "Sorry. I just happened to learn a new skill, Warrior's Intuition. You've heard of it, right? It's a pretty famous one." The bald man stared in disbelief. How is this possible? For a high-level rogue, the activation rate of such a low-tier skill should have been extremely low. Yakido taunted him calmly. What, you can't face reality? Or are you already scared enough to run away? Those words instantly enraged the bald man. You bastard! You've completely pissed me off. I'll show you my true strength. As he spoke, he raised his twin blades and charged straight at Yakido. Yakido quickly lifted his greatsword to block. Then he exerted force and knocked the attack aside. He sneered, "You sneaky little stalker. I almost thought my level was higher than yours." In Yakido's eyes, there was a skill regarded by others as utterly useless, known as warrior's intuition, a skill that sensed nearby dangers. It was considered trash because its activation chance was extremely low, with a failure rate as high as 99%. However, for a skill that relied entirely on luck, Yakido's maxed out luck stat made the activation rate nearly 100%. When it triggered successfully, he could sense every threat within the battlefield. The effect felt as if a circular radar had appeared before his eyes, every glowing dot representing something dangerous to him. As a rogue, the bald man simply could not accept that his nearly perfect stealth had been defeated by a skill universally labeled as useless. He snarled, "I don't care how you found me. Death is the only thing waiting for you." Yakido replied without hesitation, "Then come and try. I'm not afraid of a coward who only hides in the shadows." In the next instant, the two clashed head-on. The sound of steel colliding echoed throughout the chamber, while the two bosses were reduced to mere spectators. The bald man laughed mockingly as he attacked. "Ha ha, you're a warrior, and you want to compete with a rogue in speed? Not to mention my level is higher than yours." Under the opponent's rapid and relentless assault, Yakido failed to dodge completely, and a cut opened along his arm. A system message followed, paralysis check, evaded. The bald man frowned and asked, "I really want to know what kind of gear you're wearing." Neither the poison earlier nor the paralysis toxin just now activated. At that moment, Yakido leapt high into the air, using the boss as a stepping stone to swiftly move behind him. He raised his greatsword and activated Heavy Layer Strike. The devastating blow slammed into the ground, yet the bald man dodged it with ease. But Yakido's assault wasn't over. He followed up immediately with Stinger Thrust. Seeing the so-called guaranteed hit skill, the bald man laughed. "You really think a guaranteed hit can't be dodged? Ridiculous." Butterfly Waltz activated. The spot Yakido struck turned into an illusion, scattering like butterflies. The bald man's true body had already blinked behind him, completely unharmed. Yakido glanced back at the uninjured man and cursed inwardly. Damn it, he really avoided it. The bald man mocked him, "Just as I thought, you're a rookie." When contradictory skills collide, even guaranteed hits can be evaded. It all depends on the situation. As he spoke, he raised his twin blades and slashed at Yakido again. A fresh wound was carved into Yakido's thigh. At this point, Yakido looked utterly battered, forced to retreat step by step. The bald man burst into arrogant laughter. "Ha ha, I absolutely love hunting rookie warriors like you." At that moment, the boss could no longer tolerate being ignored, furious at being treated like thin air. In the next second, a deadly beam shot straight toward them. Without even turning his head, Yakido dropped into a crouch and narrowly dodged it. Compared to Yakido, the bald man's evasion was far more relaxed, his speed not slowing down in the slightest. He continued to launch fierce attacks at Yakido. No matter how the bosses attacked, the bald man ignored them completely. His eyes held only the determination to kill Yakido. To him, lumbering brutes that relied on fixed attack patterns were easy to avoid even without looking. "You bought intel from the Adventurers Forum too, didn't you?" At this moment, Yakido was in grave danger, forced into pure defense. The two bosses had instead become spectators, as if silently complaining that their dignity as bosses had been utterly trampled today. Pressured step by step, Yakido was forced into a corner and accidentally stepped onto one of the bald man's traps. The bald man sneered. "You're about done, aren't you? The moment you stepped in here alone, your death was already decided." Scorpion Death Strike activated. and two pitch-black slashes shot straight toward Yakido. The terrifying power behind them made even blocking with a greatsword impossible. Yakido was sent flying. In the next instant, he slammed heavily into the wall behind him. His greatsword slipped from his grasp and clattered to the ground. Despair flooded Yakido's heart. Seizing the opening, the bald man rushed forward. "Let me give you the final blow. Just die already." At the very moment the twin blades were about to strike, Yakido suddenly smiled in triumph. "You idiot. I was lying." In the next second, the bald man was enveloped by a gravity sphere, unable to escape no matter how he struggled. "Damn it. A gravity trap? When did you set this up?" The bald man roared. Yakido replied calmly. "The moment the second boss appeared, I knew something was wrong. The guides we checked were all based on normal conditions. No one ever considered a fool barging into a boss fight. Once a double boss event is triggered, the entire room undergoes subtle structural changes. Did you really think an intruder only meant one extra boss? The real change is that the overall difficulty jumps up an entire level." Yakido looked at him coldly. "As a rogue, you failed to notice such an obvious trap. Pathetic." Enraged by the mockery, the bald man roared, "You damn warrior." At that moment, the two bosses began moving toward him together, as if declaring that escape was no longer an option. In the next second, a massive fist slammed down. The terrifying impact smashed the bald man back into the wall. He collapsed to the ground, his consciousness rapidly fading. But the other boss's rage was not yet spent. It grabbed the bald man and lifted him high overhead. Then it smashed him brutally into the ground. Covered in blood, the bald man finally lost consciousness. All of this was thanks to Warrior's intuition, which allowed Yakido to detect the newly formed gravity trap in time. Yakido spoke quietly, "Don't worry. After I deal with these two bosses, I'll take you out and hand you over to the Adventurers Guild for the bounty." However, just as Yakido prepared to face the two bosses, the bald man unexpectedly stood up again, muttering, "Don't joke with me. I'd rather go to hell than be captured." An eerie, unhinged laugh escaped his lips. He then pulled out a massive amount of explosives from his system inventory. Strapping them all to his body, he snarled, "These aren't cheap knockoffs. You'll go down with me." Yakido was shocked by the sight. "Are you insane? If you detonate those, you'll die." But the bald man had already fallen into madness, willing to sacrifice himself to drag Yakido down with him. A system prompt appeared. "Use 100 explosives at once?" Without hesitation, the bald man clicked yes. "Let's go to hell together." In the next instant, a massive torrent of flames exploded throughout the chamber. Yakido hurriedly raised his great sword to shield himself. However, cracks had already begun spreading rapidly across the ground beneath his feet. The following second, the floor in his area collapsed completely, and Yakido slowly fell into the darkness below. Unexpectedly, he landed in a mysterious space. When Yakido regained his senses, he realized this was a hidden room that had never been discovered before. At that moment, the two bosses above also leaped down after him. Worse still, Yakido found himself trapped between them. As he rapidly searched for a way out, a golden glow in the corner caught his eye. Looking closer, he saw that it was a golden treasure chest. So that was it. No wonder the two bosses had chased him down so quickly. This hidden room contained what they were truly guarding. The most critical problem now was the room's absurdly narrow layout. With their massive bodies, the bosses completely blocked the path. In such a confined space, perfectly dodging the boss's attacks was almost impossible. A frontal assault was out of the question. Facing two bosses at once, Yakido stood no chance. The only option left was to gamble everything on that treasure chest. With that decision made, Yakido charged straight toward it. Just as expected, the bosses immediately launched their attacks. With several quick jumps, Yakido narrowly avoided the strike. But at that moment, the wounds inflicted earlier by the bald man suddenly sent waves of intense pain through his body. Gritting his teeth, Yakido forced himself to leap off the boss. Right beneath him lay the mysterious golden chest. At that very moment, a boss abruptly turned and fired a death ray at Yakido. The overwhelming force struck him squarely in the back. Immediately after, a heavy punch followed. Under this brutal combo, Yakido was blasted away, and his greatsword was knocked from his hands. He slumped painfully against the wall, blood pouring from his mouth. Just as Yakido was feeling relieved that the blow hadn't been fatal, the boss raised its massive foot and stomped down on him. Yakido desperately tried to dodge to the side, but his injuries were too severe. He couldn't fully avoid the attack. A piercing scream echoed through the room. His legs were now mangled beyond recognition, completely numb. Even so, his will to survive continued to support him. He could not give up, no matter how intense the pain was. Dragging his shattered legs, Yakido crawled forward inch by inch. He was so close. At that moment, the boss's massive foot came down once more. In the next second, a heart-rending scream of agony rang out again. Yet compared to the 70 years of despair he had endured in his previous life, this pain was nothing. Reborn into a second life, Yakido refused to fall again. He had to prove to everyone that he could grow stronger. His mother and sister were still waiting for him to return home. Driven by his last ounce of willpower, Yakido reached out and touched the mysterious chest. The next second, a golden bracer slowly floated out from within. Hope reignited in Yakido's eyes. Just as the two bosses were about to attack again, Yakido seized the golden bracer and fastened it around his wrist. With this, he would turn the tide. Teleport bracelet, an ultra-rare magical item capable of teleporting its user to any location. For Yakido in his current state, it was the perfect lifeline. As the bosses closed in from behind, Yakido immediately activated the bracelet. Warning: this is a magic item, not compatible with the warrior class. Activation success rate reduced by 50%. Warning: adventurer's mana is insufficient. Activation success rate reduced by 35%. Final success rate, 15%. Calculating. At that instant, the green boss's massive foot came crashing down. Yakido thrust out his right hand, using the surge of energy released during activation, to flip the green boss onto the ground. At the same time, the bracelet's activation check completed. Teleportation successful. In the next moment, Yakido appeared above the red boss's head, greatsword raised high. He brought the blade down toward the red boss's core without hesitation. Even if it cost him his life, he would bring the potion back. At that moment, the red boss's eyes flared with blinding light. A death ray fired instantly. Yakido narrowly dodged and reappeared behind it. The beam carved a deep trench into the wall ahead. The stone creature's defense was terrifying. Despite enduring the earlier explosion, it still couldn't be broken directly. If one strike wasn't enough, then he would strike again. With that thought, Yakido activated the bracelet once more. Teleportation successful. As the system chimes sounded, Yakido appeared at the green boss's core, which was still down on the ground. Seizing the chance, Yakido raised his greatsword and stabbed straight at the core. But at the moment of impact, the green boss suddenly shifted, throwing Yakido off balance. At the same time, the red boss had already caught up. It reached out with a massive hand, trying to seize him. Teleportation successful. Yakido blinked to its rear once again. He slashed his greatsword across the red boss's back. Even so, the attack was still not fatal. Enraged, the boss raised its fist and smashed down again. Teleportation successful. Yakido escaped once more using the bracelet. Your turn now. Yakido pressed close to the green boss's core and drove his greatsword deep into the gap. No matter how many times it took, Yakido would never give up. Under his relentless attacks, the green core began to crack piece by piece. But the green boss had no intention of waiting for death and launched another assault. Teleportation successful. Yakido blinked in front of the red boss and slashed continuously at its core. Cracks quickly spread across the red core as well. Using the teleport bracelet, Yakido switched back and forth between the two bosses, delivering several strikes to their cores with every teleport. At this point, he wielded the legendary rare equipment with complete mastery, even though his class was ill-suited for using a magic item. His maxed-out luck allowed him to unleash its full potential. Now, teleport bracelet activated. In the next instant, the two bosses' punches collided, each striking the other's core. Their cores, already riddled with cracks, were on the verge of shattering. Seizing the opening, Yakido teleported behind the red boss. Skill, Stinger Thrust. His greatsword pierced straight into the core. The next second, the red core shattered completely, one boss defeated. But the battle was not over. Yakido teleported above the green boss and activated Heavy Cleave. I'll end this with this strike. His blade came down on the green core, bringing the fight to an end. As both bosses fell, their bodies dissolved into drifting dust. Severely injured and completely exhausted, Yakido lost strength and fell from the air. He landed atop the sand-like remains of the defeated bosses. Warning, usage limit reached. Recharging required for further use. Congratulations, adventurer Yakido Takahashi, for defeating boss times 2. Congratulations, adventurer Yakido Takahashi. You have obtained legendary potion times 2. Gazing at the long-sought item, Yakido finally smiled. Everything had been worth it. He immediately uncorked one bottle and drank it without hesitation. As the potion took effect, the sea within his heart rippled, as if disturbed by a single drop of water. A brilliant green light enveloped his entire body. His crippled legs healed at a visible speed. The wounds across his body closed in an instant. Relief washed over Yakido as his body felt reborn. This potion, it will cure Mother. System notification. Special conditions met. Titles granted to adventurer Yakido Takahashi. Titles: Survivor, Endurance +10, /Giant Slayer, Strength +20, /Executor of Justice, Agility +10. Looking up at the massive hole in the ceiling, Yakido couldn't help but marvel. Falling from such a height, he was still alive. Time to head back up. His figure blurred into an afterimage as he moved across the stone walls, easily returning to the boss chamber. Scanning the room, Yakido expected to find the bald man's corpse, but only a blood-stained invisibility cloak remained. I wonder if this will be enough to claim a bounty. With that thought, Yakido put it away and walked toward the exit. Just like that, Yakido successfully cleared the 20th floor of the dungeon. After returning to the surface, he immediately reported the bald man's case to the Adventurers Guild. However, when he took out the bloodstained cloak, the receptionist screamed and ran off. This isn't something I can handle. I have to report it to my superiors. The incident caused a huge stir, and even reporters tried to approach Yakido for interviews. But Yakido had no time for such trivial matters. Sorry, I have something urgent to take care of. We'll talk another day. With that, he turned and left the guild building. He knew his mother's illness wouldn't relapse immediately, but even being 1 second earlier was worth it. Hey, isn't that Yakido Takahashi from the news? He had broken the fastest clear record for the 20th floor and was now being reported by every major outlet. Yet Yakido didn't care in the slightest. Anxious and restless, he rushed straight home. The moment he opened the door, he found his mother and sister already waiting. Welcome back. Looking at the two people he cherished most, Yakido raised the potion in his hand and smiled. I did it. The scene shifted as the family returned to the hospital together. The test results were already out. According to the diagnosis, your mother's illness has been completely cured. The effect of that potion is truly remarkable. The good news brought overwhelming joy. His sister hugged their mother tightly. Mom, that's amazing. We won't have to worry about you collapsing ever again. His mother turned to Yakido, holding his hand gently. Our family can live together again. And it's all thanks to you, Yakido. You've really worked hard. Her sudden warmth made Yakido recall the endless despair of his previous life. The emotions collided violently, spilling out as burning tears. When the words he had failed to say in his past life finally left his lips, all his buried regret and guilt flowed out with those tears. In this life, He no longer had to cling to despair or be trapped in the past. His sister wiped her eyes and complained softly, "Brother, honestly, look where we are. Your eyes are all red. The doctor's still here." At that very moment, darkness swallowed the entire room as if time itself had frozen. A figure suddenly appeared outside the window. The window opened, and one foot stepped inside. The man murmured to himself, "What a beautiful, happy family. Such a shame. It's about to become miserable. Why do I have to be the one to do this?" As he spoke, the man walked straight toward Yukido's sister. No need to think about a will. As for the cause of death, let's go with cardiac paralysis. With that, he swung his fist toward her. In that critical moment, Yakido shattered the invisible restraints of the barrier and raised his greatsword, blocking the blow head-on. He roared, "You bastard! What do you think you're doing to my sister?" The man was utterly shocked. "That's strange. Why can you still move?" Yakido stared at his face in disbelief. "Wait, that face." A realization struck him. "You're the hero." The hero was the strongest among all adventurers, the one ranked first, hailed as humanity's savior. The blond man smiled faintly. "Nice to meet you. My name is Yamato Cosmic Justice. My class is Hero." Suppressing his shock, Yakido demanded, "Then tell me, Hero, why are you targeting my sister?" The hero replied calmly, "I've already answered one of your questions. Now it's my turn, isn't it? Why can you move freely within this void barrier? Only those who have experienced soul death should be able to act inside it. In that case, there was only one reasonable conclusion, that you were also a returner." Yakido immediately asked, "So that means this is your second run as well?" The hero replied, "Yes, since you're a returner too, that makes things easier. What I'm about to do is eliminate every factor that could lead to the world's destruction." Yakido looked at his sister and questioned him, "You mean Hime? How can my sister possibly have anything to do with the end of the world?" He explained that she was simply one of those factors, and in the future, she would have a severely negative impact on her husband. Hearing that, Yakido instantly recalled the man Hime married in his previous life. Then the hero added, "Since you're her brother, you must know as well. In the last life, he and Hime ultimately couldn't escape a broken marriage, and that shattered relationship dragged her emotions into endless darkness. And that was the reason the world was destroyed. So the hero wanted to remove Yukido's sister now, before the two of them ever met, so the world could be kept from heading toward ruin, and he asked whether Yakido could accept that outcome. Yakido immediately shot back, "Don't be ridiculous. Once we returned, this life's trajectory stopped being the same as the last one. Like Yukido's mother, she was supposed to be hospitalized long-term because of her illness, but now she had completely recovered, which meant Hime wouldn't need to work at a nightclub to pay for medical fees. Of course, she also wouldn't meet that man because of it. So there was no need for the hero to kill Hime at all. Please spare Yukido's sister." The hero thought for a moment and replied, "Maybe Yakido was right, but compared with accepting a baseless guess, removing her right now was clearly the safer and more reliable option." Seeing there was no way to talk it out, Yakido immediately raised his sword and guarded himself. "If you want to touch Yukido's sister, you'll have to step over Yukido's corpse first." The hero looked at that and sighed helplessly. What a headache. If possible, he really didn't want to kill Yakido. He only wanted to save this world and keep the sacrifices as small as possible. But Yakido said that compared to saving the world, Yakido would rather protect his family. At that moment, the hero suddenly came up with an idea, saying that if Yakido fought him right now and proved the possibility he spoke of, he would spare Yukido's sister, asking whether Yakido agreed. Yakido was puzzled. Why was that necessary? Was a fight unavoidable? The hero chuckled lightly, saying he only wanted to see whether Yakido was someone special. Seeing the hero's lofty, superior attitude, Yakido felt irritated, yet could only agree to the duel. Hearing Yukido's consent, the hero suddenly laughed in delight, adding that he had forgotten to mention he was already level 50, with all attributes reaching 3,000 points. Faced with such shocking numbers, Yakido froze. How had this man achieved that? The hero leaned in close, staring coldly at Yakido as he said that this world worked exactly like this. Without power, no one could protect anything, not even those most important to you. As a fellow returner, Yakido should have experienced that truth firsthand, he said, before turning toward the window. He then drew his sword and pointed it at Yakido, asking whether he had decided. Would he choose his sister or fight him to the death? Yakido's heart was filled with turmoil, unable to decide for the moment. If he used the teleport bracelet to escape with his family, it would mean guarding them at all times. Escaping for now, but never forever. Yakido took a deep breath and made his decision. Fight. Hearing Yakido's answer, the hero looked satisfied, remarking that confidence was good, but warning Yakido not to delude himself into thinking he could win. Time was limited. The void barrier had a time restriction. 10 minutes. If Yakido could survive until the countdown ended, the hero would choose to believe him once. Yakido pointed at the hospital room and asked if they were really going to duel here. The hero leapt out the window, turning back to say that of course not. He was a hero, after all, and wouldn't deliberately destroy a hospital. They would fight outside. With that, he jumped down from the building, and Yakido glanced back at his sister. Hime, your brother will protect you. Gripping the slime greatsword, Yakido jumped down after him. The duel began, maxed luck against maxed attributes. In the face of absolute power, could luck truly turn the tide? The hero smiled and said, then let us begin. As his words fell, 5 magic circles of different attributes appeared behind him. And in the next instant, spells of every element shot toward Yakido. Yakido was startled. Starting this hard right away was a bit much, wasn't it? And with no chanting at all, this was clearly meant to push him to the brink, as he complained while dodging the attacks. The hero replied calmly, telling him not to rush. This was only the beginning. He then summoned 2 light clones, and the 3 heroes charged straight at Yakido together. Shocked, Yakido couldn't help complaining that this was outright cheating, even as he quickly opened the system inventory, using substitute doll times 2. Immediately after, Yakido ordered the dolls to block the clones while he confronted the central body head-on. However, Yakido's feeble power was instantly knocked aside by his opponent, and the substitute dolls beside him were effortlessly destroyed by the hero's clones. The hero mocked him, saying that if all he could do was defend, he would never win. In the very next second, a melody suddenly rang out, and Yakido took out the bizarre staff he had used before, summoning an enormous flaming meteor. Come, how about trying this? He said, swinging his arm down hard. As the blazing meteor crashed toward the hero, the ground erupted in a massive explosion of fire. Yakido didn't believe the hero would be defeated by this attack, but it should at least deal some damage. Just then, a voice emerged from within the smoke. I see. So this is the reward you obtained after returning? My reward is the void barrier I'm currently using, and I suspect yours is luck. Yakido couldn't help but remark that the hero truly lived up to his title. Such a powerful strike had only destroyed a clone, and yet the hero had already seen through his secret. The hero immediately corrected him, saying that it was a deduction based on Yakido's recent activity, combined with the attack just now. Yakido laughed at himself, asking whether relying solely on luck made him seem ridiculous in front of a hero. The hero replied affirmatively, saying that wasn't the case. Luck itself could also be considered a form of strength, but relying on luck alone could never solve everything. As he spoke, the hero deployed even more varieties of magic circles. To you right now, he said, I'm a mountain you cannot cross. Immediately after, each magic circle of a different element summoned a spirit of its own. Seeing this, Yakido understood clearly that luck alone could never grant everything. The chance to defeat the hero was only one. He recalled the status panel he had just seen and noticed that among all the attributes, only the luck stat was abnormally low, almost non-existent. To protect his family, Yakido was willing to use any means necessary, even if it meant standing against the entire world. He made his resolve in silence, because if the tragedy of his previous life were allowed to happen again, then what meaning would his rebirth even have? The hero launched another attack at Yakido, and this time the assault was far more violent than before. Even the fire and water spirits charged in together. Now, Yakido could only exploit his opponent's misfortune. With that thought, he took out a teleport bracelet from his inventory and fastened it around his wrist. He prayed silently that the last remaining possibility would become his victory. At the very instant all the attacks were about to strike him at once, the teleport bracelet activated. The system notification sounded, "Teleport successful," and Yakido vanished from the spot. At that moment, the entire city was frozen under the hero's void barrier, while Yakido reappeared atop a car in the middle of the road. In the blink of an eye, the hero arrived with his spirits, sounding mildly surprised that Yakido possessed a teleport bracelet. Still, compared to that, he said he preferred flight magic. Yakido leapt down from the car roof and landed among the crowd. "Sorry, let's fight here," he said. "If you want to test me, then I also want to find out whether you truly qualify as a hero. A true hero wouldn't drag innocent civilians into battle, would you? So what will you choose? Stop attacking or kill me at all costs?" The hero suddenly understood. "I see. So this is why you lure me here. I am indeed a hero, and my duty is to protect everyone in this world. I would never deliberately harm them for personal reasons. However, in such a crowded area, large-scale magic was impossible." As he snapped his fingers, the two spirits behind him vanished. Wielding a sword here was also dangerous, so he stored his blade in the system space as well. "But don't think this is enough to restrain me," he continued. "This is nowhere near an obstacle for me. Let me show you my other magic." With that, dozens of golden flying swords materialized behind him. Seeing this, Yakido immediately stored his greatsword, opened his system inventory, and took out the silver slime shield, greatly increasing his chances of survival. With this, blocking those flying swords should be possible. Floating in the air, the hero laughed and said he was already used to dealing with opponents like Yakido. Enemies who used civilians as shield were something he had fought countless times in his previous life. With a sweeping gesture, all the flying swords shot toward Yakido at once. Yakido quickly moved away from where he had been standing, yet the flying swords seemed to possess their own will, precisely avoiding the civilians below as they relentlessly pursued him. Seeing this, Yakido sprinted toward a nearby alley, but one of the swords had already reached him. He raised his shield in panic, clang, and the sword was knocked aside, veering off its original path. The tremendous impact carved a deep crack into the wall. A split second later, a thunderous explosion followed as the out-of-control sword pierced straight through a metal pipe nearby. At that moment, the hero descended slowly and said that in the final days of the previous timeline, monsters disguised as humans had grown increasingly numerous. The wanderers who once hid in the shadows had even begun using cities as their bases. As the end drew closer, such things had become commonplace. As he spoke, he activated earth magic, causing countless spikes to erupt from the ground. Yakido turned and ran. In his previous life, he had barely paid attention to any of this, spending almost all his time trapped in dungeons, killing slimes. To him, the surface world had been nothing more than a place to resupply, so he never truly understood what humanity went through in the end. The hero quickly caught up and said it was a shame. He had hoped that as fellow returners, they could talk about the past. With that, he raised his fist and charged forward. Yakido slid beneath a parked car and coldly replied that there was nothing worth discussing between them. In his previous life, he had struggled at the very bottom. The hero responded that if so, Yakido should learn to enjoy the vast open sky. As he spoke, he kicked downward, sending a massive shockwave straight at Yakido. Yakido hurriedly raised his shield to block it. Yakido struggled back to his feet and calmly said that he was the kind of person who preferred confined spaces. Even so, the terrifying force sent him flying. The hero sighed regretfully, saying that was truly pitiful. Yakido replied that no matter what was said, his nature would not change. With that, he grabbed a skateboard nearby and fled at full speed. Watching Yakido retreat, the hero said helplessly, Even now, you still choose to run? I'm already bored. I asked you to prove your worth, not to play cat and mouse. I have no tolerance for cowards who only run away. He traced a pentagram in the air, and in the next instant, countless beams of light sealed off all escape routes. Yakido abandoned the skateboard and leapt backward. At that moment, the hero was already upon him, saying coldly that if this was all Yakido had, then the farce should end. Just then, Yakido's eyes fell upon a nearby utility pole. An idea flashed through his mind, and he sneered inwardly. If that was the case, then he would show no mercy. He rushed straight toward the pole and struck it with a powerful kick. The pole snapped instantly. Are you ready? Yakido muttered. My counterattack starts now. The broken utility pole slowly toppled toward the hero, and if the hero chose to evade, the falling pole would crush the civilians standing behind him. With no other option, the hero abandoned evasion and took the falling utility pole head-on with his body. Yakido clapped from the side and remarked that it was exactly what one would expect from a hero, someone who would never abandon innocent civilians. The hero casually set the pole aside and replied that this level of impact was something he could handle with ease. Yakido sneered and said that if the hero truly believed that, then he should make sure to protect everyone here. At that moment, the cables connected to the utility pole suddenly snapped, sparks crackling violently. It was only the beginning. One of the cables lashed out toward a gas pipe that had just started leaking. The crackling current instantly ignited the flammable gas. In the next instant, a massive explosion erupted behind the hero. Shocked, the hero immediately turned around. The blast zone had already been engulfed in roaring flames. He quickly summoned the water spirit, Undine, ordering her to extinguish the fire. Undine unleashed powerful water magic, but the blaze was far too intense to be fully suppressed in time. Seeing this, Yakido mocked him from the side, saying that the hero's firefighting skills seemed lacking and asking if he needed help. The flames continued to spread, reaching the trees lining both sides of the road. Even the concrete pavement began to crack under the extreme heat. In the next moment, the center of the road collapsed entirely, and the two nearest vehicles were about to fall in. The hero's expression changed in alarm, unable to believe things had escalated this far. He hastily summoned two more spirits and ordered them to begin rescue operations. To be safe, he also called forth his two light clones and led them toward the sinkhole at full speed. Fortunately, they arrived just in time. Through everyone's combined efforts, the trapped civilians and vehicles were successfully rescued. Yakido slowly approached the hero and reminded him that their agreement had not been forgotten. The hero replied coldly that he was far too busy to deal with Yakido right now and would settle things later. Even if he turned his back and allowed Yakido to attack, his defense would not be broken. Since the hero put it that way, if Yakido did not at least try, it would mean giving up entirely. Even if he couldn't truly hurt the hero, interfering was still possible. Skill, Shield Bash. Yakido raised his shield and slammed into the hero's back. Caught completely off guard, the hero lost his balance and fell straight into filthy wastewater below, a living nightmare for someone obsessed with cleanliness. The hero tried to reach out and grab the edge of the pit. Yakido stepped in without hesitation and slashed, knocking the hero's arm away. No way. And just like that, the hero plunged into the filthy wastewater below. Completely submerged, he roared in fury, shouting, "Yakido Takahashi, you bastard! Now I'm really angry." Yakido ignored the outburst, pulled out the junk and messy staff once again, and calmly pointed out that many civilians still needed rescuing. If they didn't hurry, lives would truly be at risk. Hearing that, the hero immediately lost his temper and sighed, Fine. I surrender. Let's just say you won, all right?" And so, Yakido won the duel in an extremely undignified way. After climbing out of the muddy pit, the hero told Yakido that his luck really was terrible. Bad things constantly happened around him. Yakido had only kicked down a single utility pole, yet triggered a chain reaction as if death itself had arrived. If not for the hero's many countermeasures, the situation would have been impossible to contain. The hero then asked whether Yakido still remembered the massive accident from his previous life. Yakido replied immediately that of course he did. It was the most tragic memory of his former life. He still couldn't forget that explosion. It had taken away his last remaining family member. From that moment on, his life had been swallowed by darkness. Yakido then asked whether he had now proven the possibility the hero had spoken of. The hero answered that he certainly had. Yakido's actions were completely unexpected, and they made him curious about Yakido's future. Still, the hero decided to follow and observe him for a while longer. The time limit of the void barrier was almost up. After handling the aftermath here, the hero said he would seek Yakido out again. As for the curse contamination incident at the hospital, that would be left to Yakido. There shouldn't be a problem. Hearing this, Yakido looked utterly confused, having no idea what the hero was talking about. Seriously? The hero asked if Yakido really didn't know about the tragedy that happened at the hospital in his previous life. It had been massive news. As a returnee, how could he possibly not know? This wasn't a joke. Yakido still looked blank and insisted he truly didn't know. The hero fell silent, asking if Yakido was messing with him. It had been a major incident reported by every news outlet at the time. There was an explosion, followed by a road collapse. How could there be no memory at all? Embarrassed, Yakido explained that he had spent most of his previous life inside dungeons, hunting slimes for 70 years and paying no attention to the outside world. Hearing this, the hero sighed helplessly and remarked that Yakido's previous life had practically been wasted. The hero concluded that Yakido clearly had no countermeasures for stopping the curse contamination. Yakido admitted frankly that he had no idea what the hero was talking about, let alone any plan to deal with it. The hero sighed, saying there was no time left for explanations. The void barrier was about to disappear. He told Yakido to check the morgue in the hospital basement first. At the very least, that would reveal the general situation. After finishing his own tasks, he would hurry over as well. The hero warned him that if he did nothing, there would be many casualties. Yakido was about to ask what he meant, but the hero had already vanished at high speed. Left with no choice, Yakido decided to return to the hospital first. With a thought, he activated the teleport bracelet. In the next instant, Yakido disappeared from the spot. At the same time, the void barrier fully dissipated, and the people on the streets returned to normal, completely unaware of the battle that had just taken place. Back at the hospital, the doctor told his mother that regular checkups would be sufficient from now on. Yakido, however, was weighed down by concern. He no longer had time to explain things to his family, especially since he himself didn't know what was about to happen. The hospital was extremely dangerous now. His mother and sister needed to leave as soon as possible. At that moment, his sister's stomach growled, and she laughed, saying she was a bit hungry. She suggested grabbing something to eat on the way home. Yakido seized the opportunity and suggested that, to celebrate his mother's recovery, he would cook dinner himself. Both his mother and sister were surprised and questioned whether he really could. Yakido replied confidently, telling them not to underestimate him and to head home while he went shopping for ingredients. Just like that, he sent his mother and sister away and stayed behind at the hospital alone. Next, he decided to investigate the morgue. Normally, ordinary people were not allowed there at all. To prepare for what came next, Yakido entered the men's restroom. He put on the invisibility cloak dropped earlier by the bald man. With it equipped, most ordinary monsters would be unable to detect him. He then walked straight out of the restroom. To bystanders, it looked as if the restroom door had opened by itself, frightening them into thinking they'd seen a ghost. Using the cloak, Yakido quietly entered the elevator. Soon, he arrived at the hospital's basement level. Almost no one ever came here, and the silence was unsettling. To be safe, Yakido immediately activated Warrior's intuition. The radar showed no signs of danger in the area. Yakido began searching the area for the morgue. Soon, he spotted a sign that read morgue. He had finally found it. The disaster the hero mentioned was inside. Yakido stepped in carefully. The empty room was lined with two neat rows of hospital beds. Each bed held a corpse. At first glance, Nothing seemed abnormal. Could the problem be in the inner room? With that thought, Yakido walked toward the door across the room. As he reached it, he felt as if something was staring at his back. Yet when he turned around, there was nothing unusual. However, the instant Yakido put away the invisibility cloak, two neat rows of red dots suddenly appeared on the radar, perfectly matching the positions of the beds. The beds began to creak. The motionless corpses suddenly twitched and started to move. Low, guttural growls escaped from their mouths. Soon, all of the bodies lurched toward Yakido like zombies. In that moment, Yakido understood. This was the curse contamination the hero had warned about. Watching them close in, he wondered if these were undead. After all, undead monsters normally only appear deep within dungeons, and this was exactly the period when the leading adventurers had reached the land of the dead. At that moment, a long-haired zombie locked onto Yakido. It lunged at him at full speed. Yakido immediately raised his greatsword. With a single slash, he cut it down. These zombies did not carry any virus. They had become this way because they died under a curse from spirit-type monsters. Corpses that perish under such mental or spiritual curses, if not buried quickly, will transform after a period of time into cursed bodies. In other words, zombies. This curse also has the property of spreading between corpses. In his previous life, Yakido had heard that a soul-calming procedure could be used to deal with this, but he had no way to perform it now. Moreover, no one in this world yet knew how to handle such a process. The only good news was that the curse could not spread to the living through the air, unless they were bitten. To block them, Yakido used bed boards to seal off the path. However, a single board was clearly not enough. If he wanted to avoid being bitten and infected, he would need to stack several more. Thus, Yakido fought off the zombies, while lining the boards up one by one. Soon, 3 bed boards completely blocked the passage. Now he needed a way to reliably reduce their numbers. Through the gaps, he could see that some of the zombies had once been high-level adventurers. If they were still alive, he would have stood no chance. But once turned into zombies, those abilities meant nothing. With that thought, he thrust his sword forward. At that moment, the doorknob behind him began to shake violently. There were more zombies behind the door. The next second, the door burst open, and 2 zombies rushed out. One female zombie stumbled and fell, while the male lunged straight at Yakido. Yakido turned instantly and cut it down with a single slash. He then raised his greatsword and aimed it at the female on the ground. Just as he was about to strike, he froze in surprise. The radar showed the woman as neutral, no threat at all. In other words, the one line there was not a monster. The woman on the ground muttered in terror. Without careful observation, anyone would have mistaken her for a zombie. What? That's impossible. You're still alive? Could she be someone from the mortuary here to retrieve a body? Unfortunately, the woman was covered in wounds, clearly bitten by zombies. Luckily, the bites were fresh, so treatment was still possible. However, Yakido did not have the tools needed to make an antidote on him, and the bedboards nearby would not hold for long. Should he save this woman first, or prioritize exterminating the zombies? It was a troublesome decision. Logically, the most efficient choice would be to ignore her and continue killing the zombies, but in the end, Yakido opened his system inventory. He did not want to become a hero obsessed only with efficiency. He fastened the teleport bracelet onto his arm. The teleport bracelet activated. Crafting the antidote required an alchemy tool, holy water from the leaves of the world tree, and finally, the blood of the one who would take the medicine. Soon, Yakido gathered everything and returned to the morgue. He crouched down and gently drew a single drop of blood from her fingertip. All materials were now prepared. Next, he followed the instructions step by step to begin the process. This was his first time performing alchemy. Please succeed. I'm counting on you. Begin crafting, exorcising holy medicine. Warning, player is not an alchemy class profession. Success rate reduced by 25%. Warning, player lacks advanced alchemy synthesis skills. Success rate reduced by 70%. Warning, insufficient mana. Upon success, there There is a 1% chance of superior quality, a 2% chance of normal quality, and a 97% chance of inferior quality. Ding! Successfully crafted superior quality exorcising holy medicine. Ma'am, hang on. I finished brewing the antidote. Drink it quickly. As the potion went down, a surge of healing light burst from the woman's body, and she rapidly returned to normal. As expected of a superior quality holy medicine, the effect was outstanding. Yakido helped her sit down in the corner, then picked up the silver slime greatsword, preparing to deal with the zombies again. To his surprise, the zombies that had been making a racket moments ago were now eerily silent. Yakido approached the bedboards and peered through the gaps. What was going on? Where had all the zombies gone? The moment he looked through, the scene before him sent a chill down his spine. The zombies had fused together, their bodies twisting and warping, eventually forming a gigantic monster. With a deafening roar, the shockwave blasted the bedboards straight into the air. Hey, this kind of fusion monster is way beyond me. If it comes to it, I'll have to teleport out. So this was cursed evolution. The price he had to pay for saving others. That damned hero, leaving me to deal with something this troublesome. I'll make him pay next time we meet. Even so, Yakido gripped his sword and charged forward. The monster lashed out, extending two massive tentacles, whipping them toward Yakido at blinding speed. He ducked just in time, narrowly avoiding the strike. Then, with a single swing, he severed one of its heads. Anyone who's seen zombie movies knows the head is their greatest weakness. Unfortunately, this thing seemed to have far too many heads. The tentacles stabbed out again. Yakido sidestepped swiftly and cut down another head in one clean motion. It was clear that killing this monster would take serious effort. And so, Yakido kept fighting, slicing through incoming tentacles and hacking off head after head. Before long, most of its heads lay scattered on the ground, just as victory seemed close. The main head he had just severed began regenerating at an alarming speed, fully restoring itself in mere moments. Yakido felt his scalp tingle. You gotta be kidding. How am I supposed to fight this? The monster lashed out again, but this time its target wasn't Yakido. It was the two corpses behind him that he had killed earlier. The creature slowly lifted the bodies into the air with its tentacles, then opened its gaping maw and swallowed them whole. Moments later, the heads Yakido had just cut off began to grow back, all of them fully regenerated. This thing was absurdly hard to deal with. You're already a zombie. Just rot quietly on the ground already. In short, to defeat this monster, the speed at which he severed its heads had to exceed its regeneration rate. The problem was that most of Yakido's skills were single-target attacks, with no area damage. He could use the chaotic mishmash staff to cast spells, but unleashing large-scale magic here was impossible. One mistake could level the entire hospital. Was waiting for the hero the only option? That would feel like admitting defeat. Just then, Yakido noticed something shocking. The remaining zombies were moving toward the fusion monster, slowly merging into its massive body. New heads sprouted from the creature, followed by additional arms. Watching the monster grow larger by the second, Yakido knew he couldn't afford to wait any longer. If it kept growing, the doctors and patients upstairs would be in serious danger. The monster launched its next attack first. Its immense size, combined with relentless assaults, left the morgue in complete ruin. It had to be taken down now. At this rate, the longer it strengthened, the more hopeless the situation would become. Even so, Yakido still had no clear way to win. He needed a skill, one that could eliminate all the heads at once without destroying the hospital. But he had nothing like that at his disposal. Then his eyes caught sight of items scattered in the corner, the alchemy tools he had purchased earlier. In that instant, a brilliant idea struck him. After blocking the attack, Yakido immediately retreated behind a bed panel in the corner. The alchemy furnace was a decent tool. Did it really have to be limited to making potions only? At that moment, a tentacle whipped toward him, nearly piercing straight through the panel. If there was no suitable item available, then he'd just make one on the spot. Deadly weapons were often closer than people realized. Roadside stones, exposed pipes, when needed, Anything could become a weapon. With that thought, Yakido tore off the metal frame from the bed panel. System notification. Obtained 4 steel pipes. Just then, the monster's tentacles split the bed panel in half. Hey, don't rush me, Yakido muttered. Can't you act a little more like a proper zombie? As he spoke, he casually stored the broken panel pieces into his system inventory. System notification. Obtained 1 iron plate. He then pulled out the silver slime shield. At the very least, it could buy him some time. Multiple tentacles surged toward him. Yakido dodged while raising his shield to block. At the same time, he pulled out the alchemy manual from his bag. What he truly intended to craft was a wide-area destructive tool, black powder. The required materials were charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate. Unfortunately, he had none of them on hand. Normally, he could have used the teleport bracelet to buy them, but the remaining energy wasn't enough for a round trip. It was all the hero's fault. Yakido had used teleportation far too many times today. With no other choice, he had to gather materials on the spot. While dodging the incoming tentacles, Yakido scanned the area for anything usable. Soon, he spotted a damaged wooden plank in the corner. Obtained wooden plank. Yakido casually tossed the plank into the nearby alchemy furnace. Charcoal production in progress. Successfully crafted high-quality charcoal. Next, only sulfur and potassium nitrate remained. Yakido didn't know how to obtain them directly, but he still had the tools of modern civilization. He pulled out his phone and consulted an AI assistant. Within seconds, countless methods appeared on the screen. The simplest one was extracting them from matches. Yakido immediately walked over to the still unconscious woman. He rummaged through her backpack and found a box of matches. His luck hadn't run out yet. All he had to do was dismantle them. With that thought, he tossed the matches into the furnace, extracting sulfur and potassium nitrate from matches. Extraction successful. All materials were finally gathered. He could now craft black powder. Yakido promptly added all the materials into the furnace, successfully crafted high-quality black powder. He then took out the steel plates he had collected earlier, successfully crafted a batch of bullets. With the ammunition ready, only one final component remained. Yakido quickly sketched his design in his notebook. Looking at the blueprint in his hands, he smiled confidently. Sharp-eyed readers had probably already guessed what it was. After failing to land repeated attacks, the monster let out a furious roar. Dragging its massive body, it charged straight at Yakido. So even a big lump like you can run, too bad you're already too late. As he spoke, Yakido tossed his blueprint into the alchemy furnace. Sketched clearly on the paper was the draft of a firearm. He then added the steel pipes he had collected earlier. This was the world's very first formula of its kind. Creative alchemy initiated. Warning: player is not an alchemy class profession. Success rate reduced by 25%. Warning: player lacks advanced alchemy synthesis skills. Success rate reduced by 70%. Warning: insufficient mana. On success, there is a 0.01% chance of high quality, a 0.99% chance of normal quality, and a 99% chance of inferior quality. Successfully crafted a high-quality shotgun. 2 shotguns appeared in Yakido's hands. He didn't actually enjoy destroying corpses, but ammunition automatically loaded. Now, it was finally Yakido's turn to counterattack. He raised both guns and aimed at the monster. Warning: player's class is incompatible with shotguns. Barrel explosion chance increased by 30%. Accuracy reduced by 30%. Still, when it comes to zombies, shotguns are the best choice. Shot fired successfully. Yakido sneered. Time to witness the power of a dual-wielding gunner. Massive muzzle flashes erupted as powerful rounds blasted toward the monster. With just that, the creature's main head was blown apart once more. As expected, the shattered head began regenerating at a visible speed. But just as it was about to fully recover, Yakido fired again, blowing it apart. Against Yakido's dual guns, which do you think is faster, your regeneration or his bullets? As he spoke, Yakido fired another shot into the monster's body. blasting a hole straight through it. The creature instantly lost its balance and collapsed onto the ground. Such a small monster. How ridiculous. Yakido had no intention of playing around any longer. Holding the shotgun, he slowly walked toward it, then aimed at its entire body, and kept pulling the trigger. Ammunition depleted. By now, the monster on the floor had been reduced to a pile of flesh, with only half of its shattered head barely recognizable. Yakido let out a long breath of relief. Congratulations. Takahashi Yakido has successfully defeated curse-bound Calamity Soul. World first defeat achieved. Title granted. Sanctified Slayer. Damage dealt to undead enemies increased by 30%. Seeing the system notification, the tension that had gripped Yakido finally eased. It was finally over. There shouldn't be any more zombies, right? Just then, the unconscious woman behind him slowly began to wake up. Good. Looks like the antidote worked after all. Only then did Yakido realize. How was he supposed to explain his presence here if questioned? An intruder covered in blood, wielding 2 shotguns. No one would take him for a good guy. To avoid unnecessary trouble, he quickly stored the shotguns in his system inventory. Damn it. Hopefully they wouldn't slap him with an illegal trespassing charge. Or worse, illegal possession of firearms. Either way, he needed to put on the invisibility cloak and get out fast. But at that moment, footsteps echoed from outside the door. Just great. Someone had to show up now of all times. This invisibility cloak wasn't absolute. Many tools and skills could still detect it. And the remaining energy in his teleport bracelet was nearly exhausted. The next instant, the more doors were flung open as 2 armed guards rushed in. Behind them, a group of escorts carried a sedan chair into the room. Sitting inside was a young girl, casually playing on her phone. The church. Yakido's heart sank. This was going to be troublesome. Even with the invisibility cloak, he had already been detected. Lady Naomi, we found a suspicious man here. The girl didn't even lift her head. While playing on her phone, she asked calmly, an enemy of the god. After receiving an inconclusive response from her subordinates, she let out a helpless sigh. She casually tossed the phone aside. Sink the incident. Proceed. With that, she stepped down from the palanquin. Gold and jewels of this world are nothing more than overflowing afterglow from the treasury of heaven. Those who grow stronger by exploiting such wealth without divine guidance are absolutely unforgivable. After saying this, she slowly walked toward Yakido under the soldier's watchful eyes. The sight made Yakido tense up. What was this girl's deal? She felt seriously unhinged. Stopping in front of him, the girl looked up and asked, "So tell me, handsome young man, are you an enemy of the god?" Yakido quickly lifted his invisibility cloak and replied solemnly, "What do you think? I just took down an undead creature." The girl pressed on, "And how do you intend to prove that? You don't look like a member of this hospital staff, either. Do you possess undead detection abilities like mine, or something even stronger?" Just as Yakido was struggling to figure out how to respond, a familiar figure entered through the doorway. "Don't worry, he's someone I sent to investigate." It was a hero who had fought Yakido earlier. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly bowed to the hero, revealing his status among them. The hero spoke apologetically. "Sorry about that. I was delayed handling an incident." The girl nodded. "I see. That clears things up. If he's someone the hero knows, then he's clearly not suspicious. Though it is strange, this guy's karma value is rather low." Hearing this, Yakido froze slightly. Karma value? He had never heard of such a stat. The girl explained casually, "That's because I possess the eye of good and evil, which allows me to see a person's moral alignment." The hero couldn't help but remark, as expected of the youngest cleric in the church. Yakido thought to himself, "Is this a special skill reserved only for rare classes?" The girl waved it off. "I'm really not that impressive, at least not compared to the hero. By the way, is this person a participant in this holy subjugation? Congratulations, you got it right. If it's him, he'll definitely play a crucial role in this holy subjugation, and ultimately free the temple from the demon's grasp." Understood. Since the hero says so, I'll personally take him to the site. As for subordinates, I honestly don't want any. Yukido's anger flared instantly. His fate was being decided without his consent. The hero quickly explained beside him, "Yakido, don't get mad. I was just joking." Then his expression turned serious. "Don't rush to refuse. Come talk to me over here." The two of them moved to a secluded corner. "Sorry, but I need your help. I want you to look after that child. You know about the Job Change Temple, right? It's an extremely important facility for adventurers. Through the Job Change ritual, an existing class can be upgraded, granting far greater power. Even an unwanted class can be changed there. In the previous timeline, the holy subjugation ultimately failed. The liberation of the temple was delayed, weakening adventurers as a whole. Meanwhile, the monsters all grew stronger. Now that you know this, as long as you join us, I'm confident the holy subjugation will succeed. That said, I'm busy as well. Countless threats are sprouting in this world, and I must stop the more dangerous ones." Yakido asked in confusion, "Then why choose me? My strength is clearly lacking." The hero replied casually, all right. It's about time you built a good relationship with the church. You can't conquer deeper layers without them." Thinking it over, Yakido realized it was true. If he wanted to clear deep layer dungeons quickly, aligning with the church was the most advantageous option. After all, the church had a near monopoly on healers and support magic specialists. They had even established multiple teleport stations deep within the dungeon, allowing adventurers to move rapidly between floors. In the end, Yakido agreed to the hero's request. But before that, he demanded that the hero swear never to harm his family again. The hero raised both hands in assurance. "Of course, I would never obstruct talent that benefits the world, so I'll leave the holy subjugation to you." Yakido finally relented. "Fine, then start by telling me everything about the previous timeline." After the hero's explanation, Yakido finally grasped the situation as a whole. At that moment, Naomi beside them looked visibly impatient. "Are you done talking? We're leaving." As she spoke, she raised her hand and cast a spell on Yakido. In the next instant, all the grime on his body was completely purified. Naomi then turned and leapt onto the palanquin. "Move out. We're heading to the nearest church to test your strength." She reached out and took the phone handed to her by a guard. "Only if your combat power meets the minimum requirement will I take you to the battlefield." Meanwhile, the hero had already slipped away quietly. "Good luck, Yakido Takahashi. I believe in you." Yakido let out a helpless sigh. What a hassle. He wasn't even sure he'd make it back in time to cook dinner. To test Yakido's strength, the little girl led him to a nearby church. "Ready? Your opponent is one of my subordinates, level 40. Around average by my standards." A holy knight stepped forward from the group. He drew his sword and pointed it straight at Yakido. Though the level gap was slightly unfavorable, Yakido knew he could still fight. In the next second, the two clashed head-on. Naomi, meanwhile, somehow produced a bag of bread. She chewed leisurely while watching the fight with clear interest. After several exchanges, Yakido realized his opponent was far weaker than expected. His sword pressure is this low? Holy Knights were typically defense-oriented classes. Even so, their strength shouldn't be this lacking. At last, after finishing her bread, Naomi made her move. "You've done quite well. Now, allow me to show you the grace of God. By the Lord's blessing, I grant you strength." Naomi chanted continuously, "Heracles, Axel," as her staff struck down. A surge of crimson magic instantly enveloped the holy knight. Yakido immediately sensed a sharp rise in the knight's combat power. The tide of battle reversed in an instant. Damn it. So this is the power of her buff magic. The Holy Knight's attack and defense had both been significantly enhanced. If only their side had buffs, this would turn into a war of attrition, one that greatly disadvantaged Yakido. Just then, Yakido noticed something unusual. There was a flaw in the knight's gauntlet. A critical screw near the top hadn't been tightened properly. He might be able to exploit that. With that thought, Yakido switched from his greatsword to his shield. Then he took out a small piece of iron shavings, metal residue from the forging process. At that moment, the Holy Knight leapt high into the air toward Yakido. Skill, Holy Hammer. Yakido was already prepared, channeling all of his mana into the iron filings. He then charged straight toward the Holy Knight. Skill, B Needle Strike. A streak of golden light flashed through the air, and the iron filings shot precisely toward the flaw in the knight's armor. In the next instant, the armor shattered apart. Yakido immediately raised his shield and activated Shield Bash, sending a numbing shock through the opponent's arm. The Holy Knight lost his balance and crashed to the ground. Yakido drew his greatsword once more and aimed it at him. It was clear Yakido had won. Naomi applauded from his side. Congratulations. You've passed. With that, Yakido earned their approval. After setting the exact time and rendezvous point for the Holy Crusade, Yakido returned home. Fortunately, he still made it back in time to prepare dinner, though his own plate ended up a bit burnt. See, letting Big Brother cook wasn't such a great idea, his sister said gently. Don't worry, Yakido, you'll do better next time. Although the meal itself wasn't particularly successful, his mother and sister still ate with warm smiles. To protect them, Yakido knew he had to grow stronger, fast. The hero might change his mind at any time, and surpassing him had now become Yakido's goal. The first problem he needed to resolve was the job change temple. Meanwhile, back at the church, numerous holy knights collectively requested an audience with Naomi, all to oppose adventurers taking part in the Holy Crusade. In their view, allowing such selfish adventurers to join was far too dangerous. Hearing the same argument again, Naomi felt a wave of exhaustion. She had no desire to be dragged into political struggles like this. The leading holy knight argued forcefully, reminding her that they had already failed once before. Naomi responded with a serious tone, explaining that the church headquarters was currently investigating the cause of that failure. From the results, however, teams with upright conduct tended to have much higher survival rates. For this reason, the church maintains a hidden attribute panel used to judge good and evil. The strength of a god's enemy fluctuates according to one's karma value. However, the hero had once warned that placing too much trust in karma values was extremely dangerous. Those words immediately angered the leading captain. We have no choice, even if it isn't fully reliable. Do you seriously believe those debauched adventurers are more trustworthy than us, who hold true faith? According to my investigation, some of them were criminals in the past. Naomi sighed helplessly. You do have a point, but I already gave them my word. Do you expect me to break a promise? The captain quickly explained, of course not, but you never agreed to fight alongside them. Naomi nodded slowly. I understand. If you insist, then the adventurers will not participate in the battles inside the temple. Satisfied with this answer, everyone dropped to one knee in gratitude. Time quickly passed, and the day of the Holy Crusade arrived. Yet Yakido waited in vain. No one came to discuss the battle plan with him. Instead, the hero simply sent a message saying the plan would be revealed on the day itself. Meanwhile, Yakido was appointed as the leader of the adventurer team for this operation. The scene shifted, and Yakido found himself on the first floor of the dungeon. After regrouping with Naomi and the others, he immediately sensed that the church members weren't particularly welcoming. It seemed this cooperation would be troublesome. As the adventurer team's leader, Yakido stepped forward to address everyone. I'm sorry that a low-level newcomer like me is acting as your captain. I hope you'll look after me. To his surprise, no one objected. Since you're an adventurer recognized by the hero, we trust you without reservation. The hero has helped us many times. Without him, we'd probably still be in prison. Yakido was genuinely surprised by this. It turned out the hero's usual actions truly lived up to his title. Still, whenever Yakido recalled that shameless grin of his, a lingering discomfort remained. At that moment, Naomi raised her voice. Enough. Our target is the temple on the 30th floor. We're heading there now to carry out a sacred judgment. The group then moved to the church facility on the first floor. In any layer where humans could live safely, a church was always present. Under normal circumstances, using the church's teleportation array required an enormous donation. This time, however, they were granted free access as collaborators. As the nun continued chanting her spell, everyone was instantly transported through the teleportation array. They arrived at the 30th floor of the Tokyo dungeon, Eternal Polar Night. It was a world locked in perpetual night, illuminated only by faint auroras, with very few monsters in sight. The strangest part was that this floor had no boss, because adventurers could enter the next floor without fighting at all. As a result, most adventurers simply ignored this floor. Before long, they reached their destination, the Job Change Temple. Yakido immediately asked Naomi, "So now will you tell us your battle plan?" Naomi pointed at the temple ahead and said, "The monsters inside will be handled by us. As adventurers, you only need to secure the area around it." Yakido froze at that. "So you're saying we're not allowed to participate in the fight?" The captain of the Holy Knights stepped forward. "Don't think this is a bad thing. Adventurers with high karma values entering the temple is actually dangerous. Leave the monster subjugation to professionals like us." Yakido was furious when he heard that. Just as the hero said, karma value is a flawed metric. It's fine when dealing with truly evil people, but against hypocrites, karma value produces the opposite result. That's why karma value is often exploited by those with ulterior motives. Yakido rubbed his forehead. Had even the church begun to rot? What a headache of a mission. Coming back to himself, Yakido immediately stepped forward to fight for his teammates' interests, because they still had to report this mission to the Adventurers Guild. If the guild learned they quit halfway, their adventurer careers would be finished. The knight captain replied at once, "Of course. We won't make things difficult for you. Lady Naomi is generous." As he spoke, he handed over the mission agreement. "Your mission is considered complete, and your reward will be paid in full. If you still have complaints, return immediately. Understood?" Yakido mocked them, getting the full reward without doing anything. How generous. With things said to that extent, Yakido couldn't really keep pushing. After all, they were hired reinforcements, and their position was weak to begin with. The Holy Knights were all excited, but Naomi alone kept her head lowered, clearly uncomfortable. In the end, she only said farewell. Then she left them behind and turned to walk toward the temple. The adventurers didn't have much objection to how things turned out. After all, the mission was considered complete. They only had to wait for their reward. But Yakido alone knew that if things continued like this, the holy campaign would end in disastrous failure, accelerating the world's march toward destruction. He couldn't just turn around and say those words in front of everyone, could he? If a god truly exists, then please save these fools. At this moment, Yakido felt utterly lost, with no idea what he should do. If it were the hero in this situation, what choice would that guy make? Meanwhile, on the other side, the members of the church entered the Job Change Temple in an attempt to reclaim it. What they saw next left them utterly shocked. Before a statue of a god, a group of monsters of different races were kneeling in worship. The church's intrusion immediately drew their attention, yet the monsters did not attack right away. Naomi was filled with doubt. Why was this happening? Something felt deeply wrong. After all, monsters were scarce on this floor, yet so many different races had gathered here. Just as Naomi was pondering the reason, a holy knight charged ahead. The monsters were foolish enough to show their backs. This was the perfect chance to wipe them out. But as the knights rushed forward, a black mist seeped out from their bodies and was gradually absorbed by the stone statue ahead. In the next instant, the statue opened a terrifying maw. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into an evil god, radiating a dreadful aura. The holy knights were stunned. An evil god? They were clearly holy believers. So why was the evil god being strengthened instead? Could there be heretics among them? Once doubt took root, every holy knight began to suspect that they themselves might be the heretic. The company's assets aren't privately owned. That should be fine, right? Even luxury goods are acceptable, as long as they're given with good intentions. It's a bit embarrassing, but getting divorced and remarried multiple times is legal. If God were to see my true nature, it might be bad, but I'm sure everyone else here is devout. Even if I'm the only heretic, that should be fine. Everyone clung to that sliver of hope. Surely it wasn't them. If not themselves, then it had to be someone else. Seeing this, Naomi let out a helpless sigh. Just as the hero had said, one must never trust appearances too much. Most people simply can't resist worldly temptation. Naomi slammed her staff heavily against the ground. Listen carefully. Whoever the heretic is can be dealt with later. Right now, prepare for battle. The holy knights snapped back to their senses. Lady Naomi is right. We must believe that God will protect us. With that, the holy knights raised their swords and charged toward the monsters. Naomi stood in the rear, casting buff spells that elevated the holy knights' overall combat power by an entire tier. However, the enemy's formation was frighteningly complete. Mages in the back were continuously hurling fireballs. Combined with the buffs granted by the evil god, the monsters were overwhelmingly powerful. Naomi encouraged them, don't panic. These are merely ordinary monsters below floor 30. We've already reached floor 40. There's no reason for us to lose. As she spoke, she activated healing magic, instantly restoring all the holy knights' wounds. Their morale surged once more, and they launched a fierce counterattack. But at that moment, the statue of the evil god underwent another transformation. Massive amounts of demonic energy erupted from within it. The instant the black miasma touched the monsters, a tremendous power burst forth from their bodies. Just like that, the monsters' overall strength surpassed that of the humans, and the holy knights were driven back step by step. Some of the more timid knights began to falter. Why is this happening? I've never heard of anything like this. Naomi realized the grim truth. The longer this continued, the worse it would become. Each time it killed an adventurer and seized more authority. Was its divinity growing? After all, the more it slaughtered, the easier it was for its godhood to ascend, bringing it closer to omnipotence. Yes, gaining new abilities through leveling was not exclusive to humans. Two demon wolves lunged at a holy knight at blinding speed. Surrounded from both sides, he was quickly overwhelmed. Elsewhere, a holy knight was seized by a beast man with one hand. With no one to save him, death was inevitable. The situation worsened by the second. Even Naomi's mana was nearly depleted. Witnessing this, some holy knights fell into despair. Can we really win? Fear instantly gave rise to vast amounts of black miasma. After absorbing it, the evil god underwent yet another transformation. Demonic horns sprouted from its head. Naomi immediately understood. Damn it, it's using everyone's fear to strengthen itself. Without sacrifice, victory is impossible. Then this shall be my place of martyrdom. Even if I must unleash a forbidden spell, I will carve a path of blood before the goddess's statue.
Guys, that's the end of the video. If you liked this video, please leave a comment in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Like the video and share it too. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.